Welcome to Life Advice with Jennifer Lewis Hall, life coach, author, and journalist. Join us for Jennifer's conversation series discussing issues, events, and advice to help you navigate life's challenges.
Welcome, folks, to Life Advice. This is your host, Jennifer Lewis Hall. It's always great to be with you in the morning. So happy that you're joining me because we, as you know, get a chance to talk about all kinds of subjects and issues that affect our lives. So we weigh in with things you sent us, things you're interested in. You can always find us on social media. You can find me there too, on Twitter, of course, and Facebook. On Twitter at Jen Lewis Hall and on Facebook at Jennifer Lewis Hall. But also just, connect in some way. What's happening in your life and your community that you would like us to highlight on Life Advice? There's so much in the way that we can cover. But, this is neat because we're going to talk, and open up your minds a little bit. We're going to talk with someone who has an interesting background. She's an energy healer, has been on the radio as a host, an artist, a speaker, and an author. So we get a chance to get a window into what does it even mean to be an energy healer? And isn't that funny? I have to almost say it like that. An energy healer. It has that kind of energy to it. Welcome to the show, Janet Richmond. Welcome to Life Advice.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. I'm thrilled to be here and hope that I can give your listeners some helpful ideas.
Oh, I know that you can. I always tell people take away just one thing that you can perhaps work on, one thing that you can do better, one thing that you can revisit throughout the day, the week, the month, and the year. And imagine what that consistency means when we try to do something that's positive for ourselves each and every day. It really adds up, literally. I want to talk a little bit about your background, Janet. You have the book Choices, Neutralizing Your Negative Thoughts and Emotional Blueprint. And then your latest book, Soul Psychology, Our Journey Through the Human Kingdom and Universe. So really cool titles and kind of perusing information about you as well. You grew up in Connecticut and having lost both parents as a toddler, you grew up with shyness, as you've written, chronic anxiety, and struggled with personal interactions and finding strength in some education, as well as other platforms in your life. You were able to found your own management company and supporting yourself as a single parent of 2 children. So your background goes on. It's a really interesting background and how you have actually developed and become the person that you are. I wanted to start there and talk about how your background has shaped what you've been able to do.
Okay. Well, you've got the background. Yes, I grew up. I lost my parents. I was adopted by a wonderful family, but just couldn't feel the love. I was so traumatized, and I just grew up completely emotionally crippled. And I was able through school and work to, find some sense of inner connection and inner strength. I spent a lot of years in and out of therapy because I just didn't want to be so mixed up, I wanted to, quote unquote, fix myself. And the therapy helped me tremendously. It gave me a lot of insight. And so I was able to become much more self-aware and figure out, there's this pattern coming back to haunt me. Okay, so I could recognize my patterns. But it really wasn't until the 80s when I met a woman named Joan Culpepper who taught me the information and the techniques and what I'm going to be sharing with you on the show today. That's when I really started to heal. I had really been more or less coping well. I mean, I got an MBA. I had my own business management company, as you mentioned, for 20 years, and I raised 2 incredibly great children on my own. So I was coping well, but inside I was still chronically anxious all the time. It was massively, all day long, no reason to be anxious much of the time. I just was.
Yeah. I mean, so did you find along your journey that, I don't know if you always said one day I'm going to ... but, the fact that, for you to be doing this now and you conduct seminars and workshops, in part, I mean, I guess also tell us a little bit about that in terms of helping others. Is it with their professional and emotional work life? Or how have you been able to have your experience resonate with others and build on that?
Well, when I learned all this information, I really resonated with it, and I began working on myself. So my first focus was healing myself, and it's on every level: emotionally, mentally, spiritually, psychologically, every way. We got techniques to help us ourselves in many ways, but we also were taught, and I started to use the same techniques to help others. And it can be in any area and in every area. My life has done a 180 3 or 4 or 5 times since I started using this. As you mentioned, I'm now leading groups. I have my own radio show every week. I give talks. Here's this chronically crippling shy person.
Yeah.
Now able to be talking to you.
Well, and it is. It really is not only, a wonderful relief and sense that I can sense from even your voice and everything you're telling us. Have you met other people who have been dealing with similar things, and how have you been able to help them?
Absolutely, Jennifer. I meet people every time, all the time. I have groups that they come to. I get private sessions. I have people from the radio show that can contact me, that hear my radio show. And these are people like you and me, like everyone else, that in some way is hurting or in pain or suffering or has something about their life that's making them really unhappy, or many things about their life, because a lot of us have laundry lists. Yeah. So, yes, I run into people all the time, and this work that I teach, what I share, what I offer is very powerful, and I've put it into books. I offer it as many venues as I can find. That's why I do the radio show, because some people learn audioly, as you would know, being a radio show host. And some people like to read the books. They like to have the thing right in their hand or the words in front of their eyes. And some people like to come and experience a workshop or whatever. So I try to get it out there as many ways as I can. Of course, I do private sessions, but that's one-on-one help. And my goal is really to get the information out, because it's something everybody can do, Jennifer. Yeah, you don't need to take, years of classes. You don't need to get any kind of certificate. It's something everybody comes very well equipped to do for themselves. It's just a matter of learning about it. And if you resonate with it, because there's a lot of good stuff out there, not like what I teach is the only thing, but if you resonate with it, then you can do it yourself. And so yes, it helped a lot of people.
and I certainly don't doubt it. I'm saying I also think that when we talk about shyness, everything is so in a way exposed. Today, whether it's social media, people capturing moments on their cell phone video, moments that are both good ones, happy ones, sad ones, tragic ones. I would imagine that in today's society with a lot that you can capture, before it used to be, well, I've seen it in a picture. I need to see the picture. It didn't travel as fast as the time does now in terms of images. But I would imagine that when someone says, I'm so shy that it's tough for me to, do some things and integrate those into my work or my home. Is that what it was like for you? Explain to us a little bit more about what that really meant. Someone may say, well, it's, of course, being shy. Maybe you didn't always speak up or something. It sounds, though, in even reading your materials, it was more than that.
It was incredibly intense. When I grew up, for example, I did something that I wasn't even aware of till I was a teenager, but I would halfway cross my eyes whenever I spoke to somebody, because it blurred them. It was like hiding behind a screen so they couldn't see me. It wasn't until my teens that I realized that other people didn't do it. For me, it was a coping thing. And I had to consciously make an effort to stop doing it. So it was very intense. It was like hiding behind a way to hide. When you can't hide behind anything, it was a way to hide behind. And the shyness was of course, you would imagine in school you'd sit in the back, you wouldn't speak up and all of that. My business that I had, I ran out of my own home. I didn't do it in anybody's office. I couldn't have handled it.
Wow.
Well, I did go to people's offices, don't get me wrong, but I would sit in some little cubby hole or cubicle. It was a very isolating kind of work that I did. And as I said, I did gain some confidence through school. I was successful at school. I was successful at the work. I was good at what I did. And so I gained confidence, but it didn't mean that every minute of the day I was anxious for seemingly no reason. I mean, sometimes for reasons,
Right. But I mean, not only what you had gone through as a child, I would assume here, but also you were saying how it was manifesting itself. It wasn't just something that someone would say, well, of course some students are shy, or of course some kids are shy, but that it actually was getting in the way of your normal daily life. And
Yeah,
that's, you
and
know,
I found some good coping styles, some good ways to handle it, but I still was very unhappy with that that issue, and I didn't want to always be hiding. I didn't always want to be afraid to go out into the world. There were times I couldn't walk into a store by myself. It just was crippling. I remember my mother used to call me when the phone would ring, and she'd say, "Could you get the phone?" And I'd freeze in my tracks, being afraid literally to pick up the phone. And she'd call again, on the third or fourth or fifth ring, "Janet, pick up the phone." And I literally would grit my teeth. I mean, it took all powers of concentration.
so it's hey, I mean, in no way. I just wanted to really, drill a little bit deeper because I think sometimes, especially when we see children and they're shy and someone says, "Oh, come on, all you have to do is stand up and do this." It can be very challenging. So thank you for sharing that story.
And Jennifer, that is a really good point because it isn't about just getting over it.
That's right.
It isn't. I found ways around it. I found ways to deal with it, to be successful in my life without having to fully, heal it. But with this gal, Joan Culpepper, and her techniques, I was really able to go in because what's at the basis of shyness? Feeling bad about yourself, feeling like you're less than, feeling like, you're going to be judged or criticized.
Right.
Or more. I mean, there's a lot of elements to it. So those were the things that needed to be healed, and that's what I went in to heal, so that the shyness itself started falling away.
Well, that's so powerful. And through that, you were able to actually build your own confidence with, you said, help, but also to share that now with others. You
Absolutely.
talk a lot about the law of attraction. The law of attraction. Tell us what you mean by that. Of course, many of us maybe have heard of the phraseology there, but the law of attraction, in what way are you using it? And tell us how it can positively help us in our daily lives.
Well, in fact, most of my work, I don't actually talk about the law of attraction, but the work is related to the law of attraction, which tends to be very familiar to people. So when I'm on a show like this, I try to give an element that is relevant. It's not that my work doesn't involve the law of attraction, but it really explains it a little bit deeper. So the basis for it is basically the idea that our thoughts and our emotions affect how our life is going. Okay, and this is related to the idea that our beingness doesn't really end at the skin, that there's more to us than just the physical body. And indeed, this is accurate. We carry these energy fields around us, and the energy fields carries a lot of stuff. We can't see them, we can't touch them, but they carry a lot of stuff that affects us every day. And you could almost think of the energy fields carrying what I call the energetic baggage.
Oh, and that can be, I'm assuming, both positive and negative.
Of course, it absolutely can be. And the law of attraction, let me explain just a little bit. For example, when you think a thought, every time you think a thought, it creates an actual energy or an energy identity. And that energy, once created, with every single thought we think, moves into that energy field that we carry.
So give us an example.
Okay, let's say you wake up in the morning, you say, "Oh, I feel so sick." Okay, that's a thought. Now, each type of thought has its own unique magnetic signature. And when it flows into that energy body, the thought, I feel so sick today, moves in and finds the other thoughts you've thought over time of I feel so sick.
Hmm.
And it creates like an energy body or an energy identity. I call it a thought form, but, it's not about the verbiage. It's about understanding that it creates kind of an energy that keeps getting bigger and bigger of I feel so sick, okay? Now we have all of our thoughts, negative, positive, neutral, create these things. Every time you say, I'm going to be late to work, you're
Well, I tell you, if you're in any of the traffic we're in, sometimes you do feel like it's more than a thought. But you're saying it's what you're putting out there that I don't know if it's almost like the as people talk about the power of, conversely, the power of positivity, the power of positive thoughts, which, many people talk about in the workplace, or they talk about when they're dealing with an illness or something that is difficult to hold on to those positive thoughts. Conversely, might it have the same kind of impact? Because some of this is self-fulfilling prophecy as well. We're not talking about if you have an illness, but you're saying it's the thought we put in our minds that can manifest itself.
Well, let me explain a little bit further because you're right. You're absolutely correct. What happens is that we've built up in our energy field just hundreds and hundreds of thousands of thought forms or thought energies. Now, the too bad part of being human is that we think many more negative thoughts than positive. Why is that? Because when we wake up in the morning feeling great, we think, I feel so great today. And then we start making a list of all the things we need to do. We hop up and we get going, okay? When we wake up and we have a bad back for some reason, we've wrenched our back, we start talking about it, figuring out how we're going to get through our day. We talk to our spouse, our children, our friends. We call work. Then we pull ourselves slowly, late into work. And then the UPS guy comes in like he does every day and says, hey, how are you doing? Now, if we feel great, we'd say, hey, I feel great. How about you? But when we feel bad, we say, well, since you asked, let me tell you.
You must know some of the folks I know. Many of them, though, I must say, are pretty positive. But you're saying that's the moment when you start to manifest this thought and hold on to it.
Well, no, let me continue to explain, because this is a misunderstanding out there that somehow it's only the current thoughts that count in what we draw into our lives. Oh. These energy identities, remember, have a magnetic signature. They are magnetic, and they are drawing in the situations and conditions into the life pattern. However, we have these energy things from the totality of this life, and unfortunately, from every single life we've lived. So what's pulling in is not just the current thoughts. The current thoughts are having an effect. So if you're feeling positive thoughts and being as positive as you can, you would be empowering the positive energy identities, increasing the odds that the circumstances and situations you're going to manifest in your outer reality will be positive. But you have to understand that we are carrying from eons of lifetimes.
Wow, this is heavy.
It is very heavy.
This is heavy. Now, do some people say to you, listen, Janet, I don't get it. I don't get it. We're talking about eons of lifetimes. I've lived one lifetime. I'm living one lifetime. What is this all about? And we can't go through all of that in this time frame. But I find this fascinating to a degree because, in a way, if in a layman's, terms, if I were to say, well, you're saying you're carrying this with you.
Yes.
And it's putting an imprint on you or your thoughts as you go along. So if any of that resonates with you, if that's kind of a brief way to condense how we're talking about this is an example of the laws of attraction, let's get to it. So if you've got this imprint or this magnetic imprint on, the negativity, we started with, I feel so sick today. How do you neutralize this thought? How do you use it for the greater good? How do you turn it around?
Okay. Well, once you bring in the awareness that you're carrying all this stuff in your energetic field, and it's not just thoughts, it's your emotions, it's your actions, it's your habits, it's a lot of stuff, but it's all in there. Once you kind of get the awareness that there's something else going on, then you have this technique, you mentioned it, neutralizing, where you can change. We can't get rid of the energies, but we can change the nature of the energy.
And how do we do that? In our ordinary lives, for ordinary folks like myself, and when I say ordinary, I mean that in a positive way, meaning we're parents, we're caregivers, we're workers. We got to get up and do stuff. Not a lot of time to say, "Oh my goodness, I'm carrying this from all these different places." How do we make this effective in our everyday lives?
Well, let me be really clear. You can make it effective. The second thing to become aware of is that you carry within you, everybody does, what can do the work. And it's the divine light. I call it the pure soul essence. Some people call it the God within or whatever. Every soul has it. Every single soul. And that light, that divine light, can neutralize, dissolve, clear away, however you want to term it.
I like that.
These energies that you carry, because it's divine light. It's everything the originating source was, is, and is becoming. So in other words, you have it. Everybody has it. It's about becoming aware of it. And once you're aware of it, you only need to focus on it, and the focus gives it permission to be active in your life. Because it's divine, it can't just come in and fix us.
So what would be the thought that one would have? We started out with the example about, and this is important because we're all going through things. We all have things happening in our lives. It might be a health issue, a financial issue. It might be an issue where we're concerned about one of our children or loved ones. It might be something going on with our jobs. A lot is occurring in our country, our communities, and our homes. Some things we can immediately help ourselves with. Some is I grew up knowing, and with my family, we pray about it. We have faith about it. We also try to take action about it. But everybody may deal with something differently. But for sure, we all sometimes have to go through something. So is it about also taking some of these thoughts and changing our view about the thought to help to change our daily existence?
Well, the view that we can change about the thought is to understand that it is just energy. It's soulless and mindless, but it has a great effect because it carries this magnetic power. And to neutralize it or to shift it, what you need to do is simply focus on, and I encourage people to think of this divine light within like a sun. Because the sun in its own right is so powerful. If you use that as a symbol of this divine light, focus on that sun, just that focus of attention actually gives it permission to move in, and then just direct the sun, because we're our own directing identities, direct that symbolic sunlight to whatever your issue is. So if we're talking about I'm sick or I have problems with finances, you just ask that sun to move into that light, to move in, through, and around the totality of all those energies, and to find the ones that are causing it and neutralize them. You can either think the words, you can sense it, you can imagine it. Just pulse that sunlight into that energy field that you carry and ask that it neutralize those elements. And trust me, I'm standing in line at the bank and I'm doing it, okay? I'm in the shower. I'm washing the dishes.
So you're seeing something bright, you're seeing something that is pleasant, you're imagining something that is brilliant sunlight. Brilliant sunlight.
Wow. Because it is brilliant. But let me be really clear. You don't have to see it. For years, I couldn't see anything. Now I'm able to intuit, and I do psychically pick up a lot of stuff. But before, I couldn't. But my life kept changing. So you don't have to see it. You can imagine it. You can just say the words. I'm sending my divine light into, I'm direct the divine light to please heal or neutralize or clear or dissolve. Your words are. It isn't about the words. It's about the intention to have that divine light move in and neutralize this thought energy or the emotional energy. You can work on anything.
Wow, that's powerful stuff.
And
You're saying changing your thoughts. Some would even just say, listen, it's like turning a negative into a positive. They're both very polarizing forces. But also thinking about some people do it through meditation and yoga, or they do it by changing their landscape. So it's interesting how you're saying directing that energy. You said directing the divine light, but many folks have talked about something similar in terms of neutralizing, the word that you use in your book, that energy. I want to talk a little bit about energy healing and being an energy healer. For folks who have, never explored that, what does it mean? How do you become that?
Well, I think there's a lot of different routes. For me, I took the techniques and I learned a lot of stuff and just kept working and developing and working first on myself and then on friends and family. And eventually I got to the point where I worked on other people. For me, it is using the techniques that I first worked on myself, but I now use them on others. And I do what I call a soul scan. I go in, let's say they come to me and say, gee, I'm having a problem with relationships, or I'm having problems with, I feel so disconnected from myself, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter what the problem is. I go in and I see what they're carrying at the soul level, because after every life, when we lay aside the body, by the way, we take all those energetics we've created from that current life, and it folds into the soul. So at the soul level, we're carrying the totality of all the thoughts and all the emotions, all the actions, all the experience, all the everything that we've ever had. So
that's a heavy load. It is. It's a heavy burden to bear. It's
heavy when you first hear it.
Yeah.
Once you grasp it, that there's something here. Now, most of the people who've come to this planet right now at this point in time really want to heal. So a lot of people, if you come in and have a wonderful life with no problems, you don't know that there's something you want to heal at the soul level, okay? So you you activate the problem so that you can become aware and start the seeking and searching.
Interesting stuff, Janet. Well, we're going to talk more. Right now, we're on the line, folks, with Janet Richmond, who has used her life experience to talk about her experiences in her books and using the art of energy healing, and also talking about ways to neutralize some of the negatives to turn them into positives. Janet, thank you so much for being on with us. Where can folks find your books?
You can go to Amazon, Amazon.com. You can go to my website. You can also order it through me, but Amazon is fine. And I have them in Kindle and an ebook and print book.
Interesting stuff. We thank you for being with us on Life Advice, and we thank all of our listeners each and every week for joining us right here on Life Advice. We'll catch you again next week. This is Jennifer Lewis Hall.